I love him, Zara, Amina begged. Please give me this one thing. I beg you, Zara. Zara went close to her and landed a dirty slap across Amina's face. You should be ashamed of yourself. You are old enough to be his mother. How dare you, you old cargo. You can only be my son's wife over my dead body, she said and stormed out of the premises. In a small African village called Luma, there lived a woman named Amina. Amina was very beautiful for a 50-year-old woman. She had a long, straight, silky hair that flowed over her shoulders. Her eyes were gray like a cat's, giving her an alluring look. She was slim and petite, and one could never guess her age by just looking at her. It seemed like the gods had blessed her with youth and beauty. After her divorce with her first husband, she had refused to remarry. She just wanted to live a life of peace and solitude. She was kind-hearted and very respected by the villagers. Amina's best friend, Zara, loved her like a sister. The two had known each other since they were little girls. Both were orphans. They were like sisters and shared everything, their joys, sorrows, and secrets. One day, Zara's son, a young man named Buchi, returned to the village after spending 4 years abroad. Buchi was 25 years old, tall, handsome, rich, and full of life. After spending a little time with his mother, he packed up a lot of goodies and drove to Amina's house. Immediately he entered Amina's compound. He dashed out of the car and ran to Amina. He hugged her so tightly Amina was almost out of breath. Then, without a warning, he bent over and placed a passionate kiss on her lips. Amina was surprised. She was taken aback in shock. Her heart was racing. "Why did you do that?" Amina asked, her heart still racing from the kiss. "Because I love you, Amina." "To you, it's Auntie Amina," Amina yelled, trying to hide her trembling hands. "No, you are just Amina to me. I have missed you like crazy. These 4 years without seeing your face has been hell." Then he bent over and kissed her again, this time deeper than the first. Amina felt something she had never felt for anyone, not even her former husband. She froze, lost for words. Buchi smiled. He went over to his car and brought out everything he had brought for her. Then he bent over to her ears and said, "Soon, I will make you my wife." He placed a kiss on her temple and left. Amina stood there like a frozen statue. She had watched him grow up. She had taken care of him like a son, but now, seeing him as an adult, she felt something different. It surprised her, but she found herself drawn to him in a way she couldn't understand. "No! This can't be happening," she yelled aloud, trying to convince herself. "He is like a son to me. What will people say?" But as the days passed, her feelings for Buchi increased. She tried to ignore it, but Buchi kept coming. He kept telling her how much he loved her, and her feelings kept growing, like the quiet whispers of the wind. One day, Zara had invited Amina to her house. They talked and laughed together as usual. Zara brought out Amina's favorite apple Buchi had bought the other day. As they ate, Buchi came out of the room half naked. He was shirtless, flaunting his big muscles and big manhood under a tight boxer that pressed hard against the skin. "Hello, Amina," he greeted, placing a kiss on her cheeks. Amina choked on her food, her heart racing. "Don't you have respect? Is it my friend you are calling by her name? Is she your mate?" Zara queried. "Come on, call her Auntie Amina." Buchi laughed. "Mommy, it doesn't matter. She is just Amina to me." Amina looked at Buchi, and for the first time in 15 years, she felt a sensation in her private parts. She wanted him so bad, and for some reason, she felt ashamed of herself. Scared, she stood up and ran to the bathroom. Zara was surprised. She wanted to follow her, but Buchi told her to relax, that he would check on her. Amina stood in the bathroom, breathing heavily, tears flowing from her face. When she lifted up her head, she saw Buchi standing right there. Before she could say anything, Buchi lifted her head and kissed her on the lips. "I know you love me. Stop resisting me, Amina," Buchi said. "This is not right, Buchi. I'm old enough to be your mother. This will not work. Stop this and don't come near me ever again. Stay away from me," she said and brushed past him. After that day, Amina stopped taking Buchi's calls. She stopped visiting Zara, giving one excuse or the other. She refused to open her door to Buchi. She just wanted whatever she was feeling for him to die. One evening, the village was drenched in a heavy rain. The rain had been falling for 4 hours straight. Amina saw a car drive into her compound. Buchi stepped out and stood there in the rain. He called out to Amina, but she refused to answer. "I know you can hear me. I will not leave this place until you talk to me," Buchi yelled, his voice breaking. Amina watched him from her window as he stood there under the rain. She kept staring at the clock, hoping he would leave. But he stood there, looking at the house. After 1 hour, Buchi was soaked in rain and was now shivering with cold. Amina couldn't bear it anymore, so she ran out to him under the rain with an umbrella. She held his hand and tried to drag him into the house, but he held her back. He held back her hand, pulling her to himself. "Why are you punishing me? Do you know how much I have waited for you?" he said, his voice breaking. "What are you talking about?" Amina asked. "Don't tell me you never noticed. Since I was 17, I have always wanted to hug you. I was always in your house. I prefer your food to my mother. I thought it was..." "You thought what, Amina?" he interrupted. "That I was your son? I am not your son, Amina. It was because I was in love with you." "I love you, Amina," he cried. "Right from when I was 17. I have been living in misery because I knew you would never acknowledge me or accept me. That is why I waited. That is why I worked so hard to make money, to build my body, so I could be worthy of you. These years abroad without seeing you had been hell. But I did all this for you, Amina. I can't live without you. Please, if you reject me, I'll die." Afraid, Amina placed a finger on his lips. "Do you love me?" Buchi asked. Amina was quiet. "If you tell me you don't love me and that I should leave you alone, I will, and you will never see me again. Do you love me, Amina?" Amina looked into his eyes as they stood under the rain. She felt like a teenager again. Her heart was racing so hard, she was afraid it might fall out. "I love you," she muttered. Buchi swept her off her feet, carrying her in his arms into the house as he kissed her, looking into her eyes. He took her inside. He undressed the wet clothes off her and then undressed himself. He stood there naked, looking lovingly at Amina. "I'm all yours if you want me," he said. Amina looked at him. He was every woman's dream. Then, like a girl in her teenage years, she ran to him and jumped into his arms as they kissed. Buchi carried her to the bed and they made passionate love throughout the night. After that night, Amina and Buchi were inseparable. They kept their feelings a secret, meeting in hidden places and exchanging letters. They were always together, exchanging love glances when Zara was around them. Amina was in love, and she knew she wouldn't be able to live without Buchi anymore. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky a deep orange, Buchi looked at Amina with a serious expression. "Amina," he said softly, "marry me, my love. Let's get married. I want you to be my wife. I am tired of hiding." Amina's heart pounded in her chest. and she felt her cheeks grow warm. But she was afraid. What would Zara think? What would the villagers say? She told Buchi to give her time to tell Zara. One day, while cleaning Buchi's room, Zara found one of Buchi's letters to Amina. She read it, her hands shaking with anger and disbelief. She stormed over to Amina's house, her face red with fury. "How could you do this to me?" Zara shouted. "He is my son, Amina, my son. You are like a sister to me. He is like a son to you. You practically raised that boy. How could you betray me like this?" Amina tried to explain, to tell her that she hadn't planned this, that her feelings had simply grown like a seed in fertile soil. But Zara refused to listen. "Stay away from my son, woman," Zara shouted at the top of her voice. "I love him, Zara," Amina begged. "Please give me this one thing. I beg you, Zara." Zara went close to her and landed a dirty slap across Amina's face. "You should be ashamed of yourself. You are old enough to be his mother. How dare you, you old cargo. You can only be my son's wife over my dead body," she said, and stormed out of the premises. Zara's words were like a knife in Amina's heart. She couldn't believe her best friend could say such distasteful words to her. Zara forbade Buchi from seeing Amina ever again. But Buchi was in love and refused to listen to his mother. He loved Amina and didn't care what anyone thought. He promised Amina he would stand by her, no matter what. The news of Amina's affair with Buchi spread in the village. The villagers started to whisper. Some called Amina a witch, saying she had cast a spell on the young man. Others shook their heads in disappointment, calling her foolish for letting herself fall for someone so young. Amina tried to stay strong, but the villagers' words hurt her deeply. She would sit by the river alone, watching the water flow, wondering if she was doing the right thing. She loved Buchi, but she missed her friend, and she missed the peace she once had. Amina tried everything to persuade Zara to let her marry Buchi, but everything failed. Zara had cut all ties with Amina, declaring her an enemy. Amina was shocked. She never expected this from Zara. "Why do you hate me so much? After all we've been through together. It's me, Amina, your best friend of 35 years. Why?" But Zara only looked at her and said, "You will never marry my son, you old woman." One night, Amina and Buchi decided to meet secretly in the bush. They held each other close, and Amina felt safe in his arms. But suddenly, they heard footsteps. Zara had followed them, but she was not alone. She had brought several villagers with her. The villagers shouted angrily, accusing Amina of bewitching Buchi. One old woman threw a handful of dust in her direction, chanting something under her breath. Amina trembled, fear filling her heart. Buchi tried to protect her, standing in front of her, but Zara was relentless. "Leave her, Buchi," she demanded. "She's too old for you. She has bewitched you. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you." Buchi refused to leave Amina's side. "Mother," he said firmly, "I love her. I don't care about her age. I don't care what anyone thinks. I am not leaving her." The villagers gasped, and Zara's face grew red with anger. She told Buchi he had to choose, either her or Amina. He looked at both women. Then he drew Amina close. "If you will not accept her, then I choose her, mother. I cannot live without her." Amina's heart broke. She didn't want Buchi to lose his family, but she also didn't want to let go of the love they shared. Zara let out a terrifying scream. "I told you all. He chose her over his own mother. She has bewitched my son. My son is gone. She is a witch." The angry villagers murmured in anger. "Kill her," a voice said in the crowd, and soon everyone was chanting, "Die! Die!" as they approached Amina with weapons and fire. Buchi stood in front, shielding Amina, but behind Amina, an angry villager advanced with a knife. He ran towards Amina, but as he lifted the knife to stab her, Buchi stepped forward and the knife was plunged into his stomach. Amina shouted in horror. His mother ran to him, blaming Amina and begging the villagers to capture her. Buchi fell to the ground in pain. Then with all his strength, he screamed to Amina, "Run!"